Hey guys, a couple of years ago, I did the Nursepreneur conference that was supposed to be held in person, but because of COVID, everything went online. As a result, we had some great sessions and we were able to include people from across the globe. So I'm actually going to start opening up this series to you here in the NurseMinder Nation. What you're going to see next is the interviews that I held with these really amazing, talented nurses who are forging their own way into the world of entrepreneurship, creating their own business, using the tools that they've learned through nursing to expand into areas that you may not have considered. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, there's a few reasons. I know that today's workplace is exhausted, burnt out, frustrated, and they also want to honor all of the training that they did in their many years of schooling to become a nurse. With that, I'm going to share with you the interviews from 2020, just when the pandemic hit, but also in the description box below, I want you to follow up with their story and see where they've transitioned to or how they've expanded or how they're growing their ever present entrepreneurial journey. And so you're going to see a series of Nursepreneur interviews so you can see, listen, and learn from them and myself included. And then if you'd like more information, you can head on over to that website. Enjoy this interview. All right, welcome back to your 2020 Nursepreneur Conference. And in this session, we are talking with Colleen Cartier. She's a nurse practitioner who graduated from the Masters of Nursing program in 2016 from the University of Alberta. She's worked in hospital settings, private skincare clinics, and a family medicine practice. And she's taken Botox and dermal filler certification courses in Vancouver and in Edmonton, Alberta. And today we're talking to her about her own business, Enhanced Medical Aesthetics. Welcome to the conference, Colleen.
Hi there, good morning.
Hi, it's so great to have you here because I know this is an emerging area where a lot of people are interested in branching into this business and into this field. So maybe you can just give us a bit of background as to how you started in your field.
Yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity that I've had just venturing into this business and stuff. And I do hear lots of nurses say, oh, I'd like to get into it too, but that's a little bit trickier than I think maybe people would be expecting it to be. So kind of I just started, there was a period of time where I was casual, and so I ended up working at a skincare clinic and doing some Botox and stuff, and just thought that it was interesting. And at some point I ended up going and getting a full-time job, but I still kind of reverted back and just thought about it, and I'm like, I should really just pursue this a little bit further and just look into it a little bit. And so just started that venture of seeing what I could do with it.
So it sounds like it actually wasn't on your radar until you worked at the Botox clinic. It was a Botox clinic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah, it certainly definitely wasn't. I think there's still a little bit of stigma and stereotyping with it, and people have this persona that it's, oh, people are very vain with it, they get Botox and stuff like that. So, whether that was part of my thought process prior, but certainly wasn't on my radar prior to working in that clinic. It was until I worked there and just kind of got exposed to it and kind of just seeing how things worked that I had more interest in it.
Can you share some maybe conditions that you were seeing people coming for treatment for that were actually impacting their quality of life and their self-esteem more so than in the vanity route, as you'd mentioned it kind of being a bit of a preconception?
Certainly there's the cosmetic side of things. So there's the cosmetic and more the medical side of things, I suppose you could say. So on the cosmetic side, just your typical, lots of wrinkles that they may have, or
I got a lot of those, girl.
I got a couple myself. I'm needing to relook at that myself. But certainly there's that side of things, and just on that side, there's lots of things that go with that. It affects people's self-esteem to a certain degree, right? And when they get this done, then they just feel better about themselves. There's actually a little bit of research that talks about that this helps them professionally because they're seen better by employers, or they're seen and they feel that it gives them a little bit more of an edge. Whether that's the case or not, I'm not sure, but it definitely makes people, sorry?
We're a very visual society. And
yes,
I personally don't like to, I don't want to buy into that, but I know it's there. Like, it's hard to miss it.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's the more medical side of things, so the chronic migraines, the hyperhidrosis, so the excessive sweating. Those are things that directly affect people's quality of life, that they can, try. Certainly other treatments as well are available for those conditions, and then sometimes those don't work and they can try this. And those you have to be approved for by your insurance company, whether you would get funding for them or whatever, or you could pay for them, but they're quite costly. But yeah, certainly those affect people's quality of life directly.
Mm-hmm. And so then after you worked at that clinic, you kind of like found a bit of a place where you thought you could make a difference in people's lives and researched a little bit further. Talk to us about some of the training that you had to take to get yourself ready to undertake this business.
So I did lots of research prior to even taking the training, just kind of looking up about the procedures in general, and of course that's an ongoing thing. I still do lots of that on my own, but looked up lots of the business sides of things, and just even looking up courses in general and what each course offers. Certainly there's some commonality between all of the courses, but some are a little bit more intense and more diverse in the sense of what they provide in their course. So I did lots of that for probably 8 to 10 months prior to even taking a course, and then decided to take the one in Vancouver, which was quite extensive in terms of anatomy. And I thought that was important if I'm going to be injecting into muscles and such, that I know where they are and how they react is more so what we need to know as well. So
I think that's an important piece to highlight, is that in every business, no, it doesn't matter which one you're taking, there's probably a specialized body knowledge that you need to take. And in this one in particular, as a nurse, we don't study the muscles of the face and the nerves to that depth. And so that would be an incredibly important piece in order to enter into this business.
yes. Yeah, it's very, there's one aspect of it for the Botox component, but then when you get into the filler component and look at all the nerves and the blood vessels and such, arteries, thank you.
It's early in the morning.
And if you that you don't want to occlude, that's certainly a risk. And just looking at that diagram, I should have brought a diagram to show, but it's quite scary to make sure that you're not going to end up hitting something that you don't want to be hitting. So I think having the education is definitely a helpful point for practitioners to be doing this sort of business. I have heard recently that in June, I believe it is, there's going to be the Personal Service Act that allows, I'm not exactly sure whom, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a nurse at that point to do injections. So that worries me a little bit in the terms of professionalism, and that people will be just, everybody wants to get into this business, and it will open up some other practitioners to allow them to do this. And so it worries me a little bit what the quality people will be receiving.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to note, is if people are looking for a practitioner who is qualified, that they want to be checking what education they have. So how do you let people know that you have taken these courses and you are certified and you are a professional service, as opposed to maybe the person who's just coming off the street? I mean, I've heard of people practicing on themselves. I don't know if that's a good thing. It kind of scares me to hear people doing it to themselves, but maybe that's something that's done in the industry. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the norm is there, but I have my certifications printed. I have my nurse practitioner degree, my registration, I guess it is, or my Carna card available for them to see. I have a business license available for them to see, so that stuff is all up front. And certainly when we're doing my consult or their consult, I can review that with them, that I have the education and the criteria to provide that for them.
Yeah, qualifications. So it sounds like there's a little bit of an extensive ramp up in terms of knowledge set and preparing yourself to go in and provide this service, in terms of education, business license, and those kind of pieces. What about the equipment?
That too, you have to kind of research out. The courses do provide you with the knowledge you need of what equipment to get. You can get a package from them as well. So you have a kind of a little bit of a starter kit, and then you're good for a little bit, and then provide that after. A lot of times with nurses, so registered nurses, I've heard they go and they take this course, they literally find out in the course that they need a medical director. So, you know, whether that's equipment or not, I'm not sure if you would call that equipment, but that's one piece that I found a lot of registered nurses aren't aware of, that then they've spent this money on this course, and then they didn't even realize they needed a medical director. And so now they can't practice without that piece. But yeah, in terms of equipment, it's not too extensive, but certainly you need the right stuff, and you need to inquire into companies that you can then further order from.
Mm-hmm. And as a nurse practitioner, are you a medical director as well, or do you have to have one?
No, I can act as a medical director for myself or for other people as well.
So that could almost be a side stream of income. So you've got your own clientele, but then on the other side of it, you can be that medical director for others in the business, and to help support them build their business, you can be one of those resources.
Right. Yeah, it certainly is a possibility. And I have ventured into that a little bit with a couple registered nurses here in Edmonton. And some of that I'm needing to tweak just a little bit, because then now we sort of have two people or two businesses, I suppose you could say, their business, and then I have my own, which is fine. We can both probably have enough people to work on. That's not the issue. It's more I have to make sure that they're running their paperwork and their stuff properly and accurately and all that stuff, so that I can sign off as medical director. So we're just tweaking that process a little bit yet, but
I think that's every entrepreneur story, though. As opportunities unfold, you start walking down the pathway and you discover things as you go. And it sounds like you're kind of in a bit of a discovery process with that part of the business as well.
Yeah, I think that, you know, there's probably lots that I'm discovering with this business as I go. Certainly, it's definitely provided lots of learning. And I have always, as cliche as it may sound, I have always said in my nursing practice that nursing is lifelong learning, right? And you know, that's just how I practice on my everyday work as well. So, you know, to just kind of try and delve into this and learn, and some of the stuff we did not learn in nursing school, like marketing and all of that stuff, is challenging sometimes. And yeah, it's fun, but sometimes it can put up some roadblocks for you in terms of moving forward.
Yeah, we talk, and I think every entrepreneur that is part of this conference has talked about that there are parts of the business that, while they enjoy and they want to do them, they become time-consuming machines, and they have to consider, what is the value if I do this versus if I hire the right who can take care of this part for me, and I can get back to the business part. So yeah, there's always that balancing for entrepreneurs, and for myself as well.
Yes, definitely.
I do want to talk about the equipment just briefly, and then I'm going to come back to a few other questions. But in terms of getting set up, we talked about education, business license. Now, are you a brick and mortar business? People come to you, or do you travel to them? Or are you a bit of a combination?
I'm a little bit of a combination. It's certainly part of the growing process, and until I get a little bit bigger, a little bit more clientele, I am offering that I can go to them in their environment, whether that be at their home, I guess primarily it would be. And then I'm looking at some space at some point where that they can come to that space as well in a medical clinic. I'm hoping that's where that will be located.
Yeah, so keep costs low overhead at the beginning, build up your clientele, and then start to move over into your forever home potentially.
Right. So, I mean, that has raised some questions about, you know, whether or not that's should be being done or whatever. And I have talked specifically with Karna about this aspect, and Karna's take on it is that if you can maintain all of your requirements that you need to maintain, and that includes infection control and all of your hand washing and all of your requirements that they require you to maintain, that then you're able to offer it wherever. So
Yeah, and that's a great point. We always have to make sure that we're falling within those parameters. If you're advertising as a nurse business, that we're still following our regulations for that.
Hmm.
There's all
Hmm.
those elements, policies, privacy, confidentiality. What about charting?
Yes.
What are you doing for documentation?
So I'm just doing hand charting. I've looked at programs as well in past, and they're quite costly. And so just to try and at this point keep costs low, I'm doing paper charting charts. But with that and with the CARNA regulations, there's still very strict guidelines on making sure that they're locked up and that there's the privacy component is maintained.
Mhm.
So all of those things are needing to be looked at prior to just saying, oh, okay, I'm going to start doing this, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point. Actually, we have another nursepreneur who couldn't be part of this conference, but is in part of the Frontline Nursing podcast everybody gets access to, who also does paper charting. For those same reasons, you got to got to keep your costs low when you start, but
Yeah.
you can still do that while maintaining your professional obligations. So fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard that there are some people who maybe don't utilize the correct or maybe the approved equipment in their business. How important is that for you?
Yeah, certainly. I guess it depends what you're looking to achieve at the end of the day in your business. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to wholeheartedly say that I have, used the equipment that is Health Canada approved. There's certainly microneedling pens out there that I'm not sure where they get them, but they're $100 or whatever they would be. But they're not Health Canada approved. And so you have to kind of ask yourself with that, why is that?
Mhm.
These companies didn't want to spend the money to go through the rigorous regulations to get approved, I would assume. But at the end of the day, that's not how I want to practice. I want to make sure that all of my stuff is Health Canada approved and that I have taken the measures as we go through this. As I learn and I go through that, then I'm going to take the measures that I feel comfortable with at the end of the day, saying, no, I did my utmost to provide quality care and quality service to my clients. So.
Fantastic. Thanks for speaking to that. Now, what motivated you? We're going to get back into the motivation now. What motivated you to start your business? I mean, it sounds like you're working full time. You'd mentioned that you kind of were at this clinic and it was tugging at your heart, but is there something else that motivated you, or was it just the fact that you found this area interesting?
Kind of a little bit of both. Probably I definitely found it interesting. Was also just, throughout the years, I've just always been looking for just kind of that side business, just to have something that's my own and something that I could work on and certainly always could use a little bit of a tax break, I'm sure. But I had looked at a couple things prior, and they were with completely different patient populations. One with moms and babies and such like that, and had looked at a couple other things prior to this. And although I probably could have tried to do them, there was not that passion there, and so I think I would have struggled. Businesses struggle anyways, so I think I would have really struggled trying to pursue that one further because I didn't quite have the passion. It was just a business idea that I had come across. So certainly that's a driving force, is just being passionate about it and having fun with it, right? Like, it's so much fun to see people and chat with them and do their Botox or their filler and stuff, and then just have them feel good afterwards.
Yeah,
It's the feel good part of nursing, I say, because sometimes nursing is not always fun.
you don't
So.
always have good results, and yeah, in nursing, depending on where you work. What kind of roadblocks did you come up against as you started and as you grow? And how did you navigate some of those?
I think just trying to figure out things as I went is challenging, right? Like, I didn't have a step-by-step guide of what, okay, now you should do this, now you should do that. And I still don't have that, unfortunately. And I think that probably that's something that I will make and could offer to people up in future, to say, here's a little bit of a helping guide for you so that you don't have to try and figure out exactly what to do. But yeah, just figuring out, you need a business license, for example. I had one, but you have to be careful that it's always in the right jurisdiction. So I had to change my jurisdiction because I didn't have a license for all areas. So just figuring out some of that stuff as I go. I'm like, oh.
Yeah. There's licensing, insurance. I mean, you're traveling, so I imagine your car, your insurance there, you have to have a conversation with them about. You've got confidential paper. There's so much stuff that you have to consider when you're starting up, and you don't think about it
Right.
until you're like in it. You're like, geez, maybe I need to take some action here.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Let me just see what else I got to ask for here. Do you recall like the day you decided? Like for me, that's part of what I'm talking about is I remember the moment so clearly when I'm like, I'm going into business. I don't know if you had that moment.
I don't think I had a specific moment. I think it just all of a sudden, one day I'd look at this and figure that part out, and then, I'd look at that, and it just was a kind of a little bit each day, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to do this. It's scary to take a course, and I just had to look at it as, well, I guess I'll have more knowledge and education. And then I took the course. So it seemed like it was just kind of piecemeal that I would do. And all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I've done enough of the research and enough of the education that I'm just going to do it. I don't know if there was specifically a day where I'm like, okay.
Evolved.
Yeah, it just was evolving. Still evolving.
Yeah, you know what? They all are. They all are.
Yes.
This conference is an evolvement of my business.
Yes.
Let's talk about the product a little bit. So for those who are interested in maybe pursuing this type of business, I think of when I was in immunizations, we had the cold chain cycle. We had to keep our fridge at certain temperatures. They were only good for so many days, that kind of stuff. Is that part of Botox and fillers as well?
Certainly for the Botox, it is. Yeah, the fillers can be stored at room temperature. But for fillers, or for Botox, pardon me, yes, I do need to maintain it at a certain temperature. In fact, before you reconstitute it, it needs to be frozen. So when you get it shipped in, you need to be able to accept it and get it into the freezer. I mean, it comes packaged properly, but you can't leave it out forever. So it certainly needs to be either frozen till you reconstitute it, or then refrigerated thereafter. And certainly has a shelf life of.
Yeah. And who do you like? Where do you find the suppliers from? Are they local? Are they overseas? Where do you have to get your supplies from?
They are Canadian. So there's two companies. Either the Botox comes from Allergan Pharmaceuticals, or the other product, the Dysport, comes from Galderma.
Okay, so you
there's
get
a couple.
local.
Well, I think they came from down east in Canada.
Yeah, that's right. I guess sorry. When I was thinking local, I was thinking Canadian.
Yes.
Broad local.
Broad local.
All right. So when it comes to pricing businesses, it's always a bit of a tricky thing. How did you come up with your pricing structure? What research did you have to do?
Well, certainly looked at other companies, what other people were charging, so that I could be competitive with them as well. Had a little bit of an idea from the clinic that I had worked at previously on in terms of what was being charged for certain procedures, and then kind of just looked at how I could tweak that pricing in terms of sometimes I'm a mobile business, so I don't always have that overhead, so tweaked it just a little bit in terms of that aspect.
That's awesome. So as we close out, are there any tips that you'd like to leave with our nursingpreneurs who are interested in this area?
I think just being consistent in messaging and creating that brand is important, so that you're offering up the same thing all the time and it's not confusing for people. That I'm kind of still learning as well as I go, but certainly that's what I found to be important this far. And just being passionate about it, I think will come through in that in regards to giving that service to clients and stuff. If you're showing passion and it's a true love, then that certainly shows through, and they get that service from you.
Great advice. Any last words you have? Maybe I didn't ask something you want to share with the audience.
I think it was fairly thoroughly covered. I just wanted to say that if anyone was ever interested in services or anything like that, they could check out my website. And if you're looking for any other mentorship in just terms of how to get started, and we can look at doing a little bit of a mentorship if you want to need a little bit of help getting started with business and just what exactly needs to be done as a step-by-step kind of idea, don't hesitate to reach out and touch base with me.
That's an amazing offer. Thank you so much for being part of this conference.
Thank you.
All right, we'll talk again.
Okay, thanks, Tammy.
Now, don't forget to check out the description box below to see what they're up to now. Did this amazing entrepreneur stay in the same field? How has their business grown? Did they change? Did they go back to nursing? Find out below. Now, as you can see, I am working from home. I am still in the entrepreneurial business, although my business is also shifting and evolving. So follow us, like, share, comment. Let me know how this has been helpful. We always want to support each other as we move forward to the lives that we most feel fulfilled in. And as always, go out there and make it a great day.